Hello, I'm HG Tudor. Welcome to another episode of the Ultra in Conversation. And today I'm conversing with the delightful Michelle from Royal Daily Tea. Hello, Michelle, and a warm welcome to you.
Hi, HG. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Now, you're similarly a YouTuber to my good self, and on your channel, many of your videos are about Harry and this one's wife. Now, you're from the United States, and therefore it's invariably a question that I pose being British. What's
hmm
so interesting in these two to somebody in the United States?
Well, I grew up a major Princess Diana fan. So I'm from
Okay.
Texas. And when I was a young girl, I don't know if I'm older than you or not, but when I was a young girl, about 8 years old, I woke up to watch my cartoons one day, and there was this huge wedding on TV. And that's when I found out, oh my God, there's a real life princess. Are you kidding me? These exist. She looked like Cinderella had come to life. And that started my lifelong obsession with the royals. So my poor mother, back in the day, all we had was the tabloids. And so
Mhm.
every single time we'd go to the grocery store, if there was a picture of Diana, I had to have it. And so my mother, there was a funny story where my mother used to try to sneak out of the house because I was such a brat that when we got to the checkout, I would just casually throw, a couple of magazines on there. That one time I actually hid in the back of the car,
Mhm.
and we laugh about this. And she's like, "Oh yes, I outsmarted Michelle." And then
Mhm.
I popped up and went, "Surprise!" that I hid in the back of the car because I knew she was going to the grocery store and I wanted to get my tabloids because I was obsessed
So
with
that's a
Diane.
that's a pretty that's quite a focused early attempt to
Yes,
ensure that you're getting your royal fix. You mentioned
yes,
your
yes.
reaction being that you saw a real life princess, and so to a young girl, one would perhaps be the case that many young girls
Right.
have a fascination of being a fairy tale princess, and you see one, so you become interested in that. So, was your
Right.
focus just on Diana, Princess of Wales, or were other
Uh,
members of the royal family of interest to you?
Excuse me, I'm spritzing. Yeah, in the beginning, it was Diana, and of course, the press always has a narrative, right? Diana good, Charles bad, Camilla bad, Diana good. So we all bought the stories that were being sold, in the tabloids. I was very much about Diana, and she was, they kind of made her into Mother Teresa. She was this beautiful, fashionable woman that people just adored. She was doing all this charity work. How could you not fall in love with Princess Diana at the time because of the narrative?
Yes.
And I never really liked Charles. And of course, we all hated Camilla. She was the Rottweiler. Again, that was the narrative. So as you get older, you start to have life perspective and you kind of start to see things differently. And of course, after she died, it was devastating and she became like a saint.
Hmm.
And then, of course, stories started coming out that Diana wasn't exactly the innocent woman and she played games with the press and excuse me, that she had her own dalliances. But I'm not one of those people who wants to point fingers and say that Charles was bad or Diana was bad. I don't think they were bad people. They just had a bad circumstance and they lived their life the best that they could. I don't even vilify Camilla. I actually like Camilla, which is shocking to my family because they're like, "You like Camilla?" Because I was such a Diana fan.
Hmm.
But as you get older, you see things differently. And I'm a royalist. I consider myself a royalist. I love the royal family. I studied other royal families around the world as well. So pretty much since I was about 8 years old, I've just been fascinated with the world of royals. But Diana was definitely the one that got me started.
I understand. I had an ex-girlfriend whose mother
hmm
absolutely hated Camilla because she
Ah,
worshipped Diana. And so I
right.
made it my business whenever I was there to always sing Camilla's praises to annoy her, which was very satisfying. Now, so that explains your interest in the royal family, which of course of which
Right.
Prince Harry is part, although
hmm
less so these days.
Right.
But you do have considerable focus on Harry and this one's wife. So whilst I understand your appreciation and interest in the royals and where that's come from, how has
hmm
it segued into those two?
Well, I kind of fell into being a royal commentary. Like it's funny because you would think that would have been the life path I would have chosen because how much I love the royals. It wasn't until around 2021 when I saw the Oprah Winfrey interview, which I know for a lot of people that was kind of the catalyst. Now, I would
Yes.
say around the time of Megxit, when we start, well, actually around the time of the engagement. Now, I was a huge fan of Harry and William. Obviously, they were Diana's boys. We all fell in love with them, watched them grow up. And when he got engaged to Meghan Markle, I did not know who she was. I had to Google her.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, an American actress. And I have to be honest, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because I really thought that she wasn't the one. Right. I thought, oh, this will be over in a couple of months. An American actress, where is this going? Right.
Okay.
And then when they got engaged, I was like, oh, I guess I should start paying attention. I guess this is serious. I thought she was beautiful. I actually thought she was Italian or Argentinian. I had no idea that she was, part African American, which was fine. And I was excited about the prospect of another wedding. Of course, we all were. But when I watched the interview, I kind of, something in the back of my head was like, that's interesting. Something went off in my head, but I didn't know what it was. I tried really hard to like her. I was like, you know what? It's a wedding. This is Harry. This is going to be fabulous. I watched the wedding. I thought the wedding was pretty, but I believe it was during the what do you call it, the build up to the wedding when all the drama started happening with her father. Will he, won't he? And I thought, wow, that's interesting. That's never happened during a royal wedding, the drama. And then her brother and sister, I think they were on TV, and I was like, oof, this is not good. This is kind of embarrassing, right? Like, that doesn't happen. That didn't happen for Catherine or Sophie or Diana. People with royal weddings don't have this family drama. So I thought that was interesting, right? And then when he didn't walk her down the aisle, I thought, this is very odd. And I felt like the wedding kind of became a little woke, like she was playing a narrative. And I also thought it was weird that, okay, so her father had a heart attack or a stroke. He couldn't walk her down the aisle, which was unfortunate. Why didn't her mom walk her down the aisle? Why did she have her mom, who was in the car with her? She's like, this is where you'd get going, Doria, get to step in. And then she gets out of the car by herself. And I thought, well, she's definitely not the virginal shy bride. She's okay walking herself down the aisle. So to me, it was off-putting.
And when you were witnessing all of this, Michelle, and obviously some alarm bells are going off for you.
Yeah.
Did you appreciate that you were watching someone driven by narcissism, or did you just think it was something else?
I definitely did not think narcissism, because to be honest with you, I didn't even know what a narcissist was until I started studying her, thanks to your channel. I really didn't even know. You hear, it's a word you hear thrown around, but I didn't really understand it. And I did not equate yet her being a narcissist, because at that time, at least I didn't see her being a narcissist because we didn't really know her. We'd only saw her on the interview, and then we saw her on the wedding. So at first I kind of felt bad for her because she had the family drama. Her father couldn't walk her down the aisle. She walked herself, and I thought she looked lovely. I have to say her tiara was one of my favorites. And I was happy for them, but I did find some different elements in the wedding. And the one family member and all of the stars, again, I was like, that's weird.
Yes.
I'm trying to be happy. I'm trying to be positive. So I loved the wedding. I was happy for them. And then the other thing I noticed was we never got a lot of coverage of them. In America, like their royal duties. They only did 72 engagements in 18 months. But I was like, gosh, we never hear or see Harry and Meghan, right? So I was still kind of on board with Harry and Meghan until Megxit. Then when they came to America, that's when I was like, that's weird. And then when they started going in all the Zoom speeches, that's when I stopped liking them.
Okay, so there was this almost drip effect as you saw various behaviors, and you kept thinking, that's a little bit strange, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. There are some aspects of them that I still like. And it was really once they had come to the United States that was the crossing the Rubicon moment where you thought, no, there is something that I don't like about both of them.
Yes. Well, it wasn't until they started, like literally, when they came over in March of 2020, and I always laugh, talk about the worst time to launch yourself on a world platform was the beginning of the worldwide pandemic. So when she came over here, we had the George Floyd And in America, it was very divisive. Lots of social, constructs going on here. Lots of division with the police. We had the coronavirus. Sorry, we had race relations. She immediately got herself into politics, and I was like, no. And I'd never heard her speak before. So when she started doing these really weird word salad speeches on those Zoom calls where Harry looked like he was locked in a dungeon, and you were like, Harry, blink twice if you need help. Remember those Zoom speeches?
Yeah,
That's when we got introduced to her word salad with the side of chicken, right? And I was like, oh, wow, she really thinks highly of herself. That's when I started really disliking her. And I found, according to Taz, Yankee Wally, Murky Meg, and I was like, oh, I'm not the only one. Because I never heard anyone really speak out at that point about her. And so I just happened to fall upon, according to Taz, and she's like, why I don't like Meghan Markle. And I was like, okay, I'm not the only one. So then when I started hearing her talk, I was like, wow, she makes a lot of sense. Okay. So then I started following YouTubers and learning about Meghan, because in America, they weren't really covering her that much.
I see. So you found that you didn't like her and other YouTubers are talking about her. What then prompted you to take that step to start to talk about her fairly frequently on a YouTube channel? What motivated you there?
Well, actually, it was TikTok. So what happened was I watched the Oprah Winfrey interview and I was stunned. She literally called the royal family racist. And I was like, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it. And then when they did all the things which I knew for a fact were not true, about not giving Archie the title because of his skin color, I was like, okay, no. So I didn't even barely know how to do TikTok. And at the time, I had my most viral video was me talking about the price of Panera Bread. It had 15,000 views. So I thought I was something. And I started doing, at the time, I don't know if you do TikTok, you can only do a minute. So I had like a 30-part series on Meghan Markle, but literally within the first one I did talking about the inconsistencies of the Oprah Winfrey interview, it went viral. And I had one that has almost 4 million views. Like, people were like, I couldn't make them fast enough. And I was like, wow, there's something here. People are interested. So I was doing all these 1-minute clips, part 1, part 2, part 3, and then I went in on the wedding and I just kept going. And there was an audience that just was born during that time. And, but I got so much hate and I didn't know how to handle it. I was just an average girl living in Texas, complaining about the price of Panera Bread. The next thing, I had to literally turn off the comments because I had like over 100,000 comments, and I was.
And this is on TikTok, is this?
Literally, yes, March 2021, the day of the Oprah Winfrey interview. I went on TikTok, and that's where I was born. I had to change my name. I wasn't called the Royal Daily Tea. I was under my name. I threw up a fake photo because I freaked out, because people were coming for me. Like, I had never seen this before. And I had no idea anyone would ever even see my TikTok. Do you know what I mean? And it was.
And when you say people were coming for you, expand on that. What were they writing?
Oh, you racist, you're jealous, you wish Harry chose you, the typical. They never have a real argument. It's always an insult. And then if they can't find anything really to say, you're jealous and you're a racist. But it was so much hate that I didn't know how to handle it. I mean, I was just a little girl in Texas talking about the Royals, and I had over 3 million views. Some of them had 1 million, 500,000, 200,000. This was back in the day in TikTok where you could literally go viral and say anything. Nowadays, it's a lot more, it's harder. But nobody was really talking about Harry and Meghan in the Oprah interview at that time. And then, of course, now everyone talks about it, right? Yeah. But at the time, in 2021, it was new. Yeah.
Okay. And are you still on TikTok?
I am, but what's really funny is that, and I think you can understand this, I got blackballed, and they literally tanked my channel to where my views people weren't seeing my videos, and I was going from like astronomical growth to literally stayed at the same number of subscribers for 1.5 years. So finally I was like, I'm going to YouTube. So that's kind of when I made the switch a little bit more, and I focus more on YouTube, even though my channel does get throttled, and I'm sure you understand that. I always feel like I'm getting suppressed, but that's okay. But I'm trying to get back into TikTok, but they've changed the rules. So you have to be very careful. It's more censored. It's worse than YouTube, I think.
Tell me more about this concept of being throttled. What are you experiencing there?
Well, less views, where people don't even see your videos show up. And then like if they were saying, oh, you gained 100 subscribers, and then they would subtract 100 subscribers. And I'm like, how am I going down when I keep supposed to be going up? So like literally people would be like, why are you still at 35,000, followers after 9 months? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like literally the number didn't change. It would go down, but then they would tell me I was getting all these subscribers.
Yes.
So, and I would even reach out to support, and they're like, it's fine. But now I hit 63,000, but I really don't do a lot with it because the engagement's not what it used to be. And now everybody is on there, but I'm thinking about going back. It's just, for me, it's time. I don't have a lot of time.
When you say going back, you mean to TikTok?
Yeah, just posting more on there. I've been kind of stagnant on my TikTok just because it wasn't growing, and I focus more on YouTube. Yeah.
Given that you're experiencing these fluctuations in relation to your video views and subscribers, why do you think that's happening?
I think it has to do with censorship, and we also have a lot more people. When I started in 2021, there wasn't as many, but now there's so many people, even bigger channels, who didn't even focus on the royals are like, wow, Harry and Meghan are big business. So then they start putting out content on Harry and Meghan. Like for instance, in America, on the homepage of Yahoo, there's a royal section. On People Magazine, there's a royal section. On the New York page 6, there's now a royal section. So everyone notices now that Harry and Meghan, whether you like them or not, you get the clicks. And I'm sure you've noticed if you put Meghan or Harry in your thumbnail, you're going to get a higher click than if you put something else.
Well, it's certainly the case. There is a lot of interest in them. And it makes sense that if you are an early adopter in relation to talking about them, and more people have got on the bandwagon, and that's quite clearly the case because you can see, you may know that when I first wrote about it, I was probably the first to say that she was a narcissist, and I did so many years ago, and I actually did so in writing on my blog rather than on YouTube, and then I narrated that work as a video on YouTube, and I didn't really comment that much about her. And it was only after a period of time when I saw that there was so much material being generated by her that it was almost a case of, I'm going to have to make a few videos to catch up on all of this because there's so much happening. And then all of a sudden, more and more people started to take an interest, and it then becomes something where many people are interested in what she and Harry are doing. And then it's led to a proliferation of channels. I've seen, for instance, there might be people that would talk generally about body language, and then they realize that talking about her gets lots of views. So as a consequence of that, they don't so much focus on body language anymore. It just becomes talking about this one's wife. I've seen other people who would ordinarily interview people about various aspects of the world. All of a sudden, their interviews are focused on talking about her because they realize that she is a topic that generates a lot of views. So you've seen many people almost alter the basis of their channels to cater for talking about her because they've suddenly thought, oh, look at this, I'm getting all of these views. And therefore they kind of slightly abandon the core principles of their channels. I mean, for my own part, I still talk about the narcissism. Occasionally I parody her to alleviate the boredom of speaking about the Duchess of Beige. And I like to mix it up with other topics as well, but part of it is all about the extension of the reach of the channel, and she facilitates that. So one might feel slightly dirty about doing it, but it serves a purpose. So so you mentioned there, Michelle, that you'd experienced some heat, if we can describe it as such, on TikTok from people calling you racist, the standard complaints about you wish you were with Harry and you're jealous when they mean envious. Have you had any, there are people that I've spoken to who've had real conflict with the Sussex squad, with the Sugars. And in those circumstances, what they have found is that they not only came under commentator attack, but they found themselves being doxxed and spoken about in a way which was going to another level. Have you experienced anything like that?
I have to say I'm really lucky that I haven't, but I got a lot of hate over on TikTok. Now, I believe most of the Sussex squad, they tend to live on Twitter, and I stay away from Twitter. I don't know if you're on Twitter, but Twitter is really scary.
I am. I don't spend a huge amount of time there. I just tend to, well, originally it was set up so that my blog articles were automatically posted there, but that is no longer a function that WordPress offers. Now, I might pop the odd picture up and reply to the odd person, usually just post my videos there. But I agree with you. It's a real battleground in relation to those who are pro-Sussex and anti-Sussex. There's a lot of vitriol that's spouted on there. It's rather interesting. With the hatred that you experienced, do you think that that's something that comes with the territory? You've just got to put up with it?
I think it's culture. I think there's a lot of people that they just follow Meghan blindly. They think that they're supporting her, they're supporting the Black community. There's, the thing about Meghan is she was smart. She played the race card. See, if Meghan was not African American or biracial, I don't think she would have the following that she has. I think she was really smart on getting behind popular buzz culture. And at the time, when they did the Megxit, she played the whole racism card. She played the whole victim card. And that really tied into what was happening in America at the time with the George Floyd situation. So Indeed. She came on and tried to piggyback off of that. And there are people, one of my best friends is African American, people within the Black culture, they will blindly support someone based on race, no matter if they're horrible, they believe anything they say. And she knew that. So I believe when I got all the hate, they just jumped on the bandwagon, not necessarily caring about Meghan, but I think it was more the social construct of racism.
I do think that she has become, to an extent, a poster girl for certain individuals, whereby they live vicariously through her. I recall that there was a lady from San Francisco who was a long-standing reader of my work, and she went by the name of T. That was the initial of her name. And she was African American, lovely lady, very pleasant. She contacted me. She hadn't been around for a while, and she got in touch with me. And as always, she was very bubbly, very polite. And she said, I've read your articles about this one's wife, and I've watched some of the videos as well. And she said, I understand where you're coming from, because you're absolutely right about the narcissism. But she said, I was so disappointed. She said, I thought finally one of us has got in there. One of us has, got that role finally, that's joined the royal family. And I was so pleased. And then this lady T is very fair, very balanced. And she naturally thought, one of my grouping has got there. And oh dear, she's now let us down. So she could see it in a more balanced way. There are those that show a slavish devotion to supporting her come what may, and they regularly don't evaluate the evidence or apply any kind of critical thinking. They simply go, well, if you criticize her, you're a racist, and it doesn't work like that. You're criticizing her behavior. You're not talking about her skin color. And I don't actually think that she was particularly smart. I think her narcissism was adept in the sense of the way that it works for her, because she's unaware of what she is. Her narcissism basically looks around almost like in a box of tricks. What can we use to get to the prime aims? And one of those things, of course, is she, like many narcissists of a mid-range ilk, have a huge victim mentality. And so what is something that you can utilize to enhance your victim mentality? I'm being picked on. Right. Why am I being picked on? Because of my race. So it was a natural progression for her narcissism basically to go and find that race card and keep applying it. And I think there was a fortuitous aspect, because it coincided with the aspect of what was going on with George Floyd, because we know hitherto she didn't give a rat's ass about the issue. of race. She doesn't even bother now. It's been seen in the men that she's dated, the men that she's married, the people that she's fraternized with.
Right.
Her narcissism just chose it out of convenience. And it's
Right.
unfortunate for many of the people that support her, if they actually understood that she holds them in contempt, and it's not about being some pioneering race relations individual. She's using them, and they just are serving a purpose. She wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire.
Yeah, I think it was a narrative. She chose a narrative, and it was the woke feminist. Remember she wrote a blog on the TIG, said that she was She-Ra. She put Catherine down. I'm not a princess. I'm She-Ra, a warrior princess. I'm a feminist. So the whole thing of her walking herself down the aisle was a narrative. And then of course she wanted to play up the princess of color. And in her wedding, she had the black choir. She had her one family member who happened to be her black mother. To me, it was very, very orchestrated, the way that she crafted that narrative. And the interesting thing is Meghan is not the first woman of color to marry into the British aristocracy. We have the Marchioness of Bath, who in 2020 became the first Black Marchioness. And she's been married for over a decade, I believe, and she's beautiful. They have biracial children. Then we have, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. Rose, I believe is her name. She married someone also a part of the British aristocracy. Then we have the beautiful Princess Angela, who married into European royalty of Liechtenstein. And Meghan actually copied her wedding dress to a T. So Meghan isn't the first, but she wants people to believe that she's this groundbreaking feminist who's breaking records, and everyone's just mean to her because she's biracial. And it's like there are other women who have been married for decades into royalty that are of color. You're not the first. But again, people don't research, and so they don't know.
No, and I think they fail to appreciate this, that when you're dealing with European monarchies, oddly enough, those countries are ones where the population was predominantly white. And that then meant that your nobility and your monarchy was also white. So if you look, for instance, within England, from going from William the Conqueror, who was a Norman, he was white, and then going through all the various Henrys, 1 through to 8, the Edwards, the Richards, King John, they were all white. Why? Because that country was white. And so when they married, they invariably would marry somebody from another royal house because, as I'm sure you know, marriage wasn't about love. It was a contract that was designed to keep power and keep property and end wars and maintain alliances. So that meant that you would have to go and marry somebody that would come from another royal house. And oddly enough, all your other European royal houses would also be white because they're based in white countries. So you're going to have generation after generation, white people marrying white people in the aristocracy because you haven't got an alternative choice, because you are expected to marry somebody who is from a royal background, and therefore the only royal background that you have in Europe is white people. And they drum it up as to suggest that it was something inherently racist, and it wasn't. It's almost like being told you're only allowed to marry within your particular religion. So therefore, if you're Catholic, you're only ever going to marry other Catholics. You're not going to get Protestants or Methodists or Muslims or Jews coming into the mix. So for them to act with this sort of almost astonishment of, oh, it's been such a white institution for such a long time, and as if that's being done in a way which is racist. It's not. It's just historically that's the way that it occurred, because your pool of selection could only be from another royal family in Europe, which invariably happened to be white. And then some slight changes came in, the ones that you have mentioned there. And then, of course, there was more a move to marrying a commoner, someone who wasn't royal, which then opened it up further. And you've seen that in various royal families. You know, for instance, in the Norwegian royal family, Crown Prince Haakon, he married a commoner. Oh, she's white, but she was a commoner nevertheless. William married a commoner, and Harry did as well. And he just happened to marry someone that was biracial. But to try and portray all of these institutions as inherently racist, it's just because they've always had white people in them. That's because they come from predominantly white countries to begin with, and then as there was greater multiculturalism, they wouldn't penetrate the aristocracy because the aristocracy married the aristocracy, and they failed to understand and appreciate this. Now,
Well, the funny thing
talking
is,
about the monarchy and royals,
yes,
wait, who's your favorite royal? Who's your favorite member of the royal family?
the Princess of Wales. Yeah, I love
You
Catherine.
like Catherine?
I do believe, we never thought we would see someone on the level of Princess Diana. And I think she's a close. She's very much up there in her popularity. We can definitely tell, in my opinion, the royal family has become a little dull without Catherine. We miss Catherine. She is the perfect Princess of Wales. If you could have ever written on a piece of paper, the next Princess of Wales, I think she definitely fits that to a T. But I just want to make a quick comment about what we were just talking about. No one ever calls the Japanese royals racist. And they only marry Japanese within the Japanese aristocracy. And they're actually having a problem right now is because the daughter of the emperor, they don't give to women. It's always to a male heir. She doesn't have anyone within the Japanese aristocracy to marry. So when a Japanese princess cannot marry within the Japanese aristocracy, she's got three choices. She can either A, live with her parents, B, become a nun, or C, she has to give up everything and marry someone outside of the Japanese aristocracy. And that's what happened to that royal princess. She married a commoner. She gave up her title, her inheritance, her money, even her children will not be in the line of succession. Completely cut off. They moved to New York City. But do you ever hear anyone say, well, the Japanese royals are racist because they don't let them marry outside of Japan? Nobody says a thing. Does anyone say anything about the Middle Eastern? Not a thing, but for some reason, it's the white Europeans that get called racist, and I don't understand that.
Well, I think part of it relates to the fact that certain European nations, such as Great Britain, Holland, as was now the Netherlands, Italy to some extent, Spain, France, even Belgium, had empires, and those empires were in the Middle East, were in Africa, and in the what became the United States, and Central America and South America. And I think that because those countries in those other continents didn't come and conquer Europe, but Europe went and conquered large tracts of South America, Central America, North America, and Africa, there is this resentment that exists, which is essentially you came and you took things from us. And therefore, that was driven by, at the time, your leaders, who were your kings and your queens. And therefore, they see that as inherently racist to go to these other countries, to conquer them, to enslave the populace, leaving aside the argument about the infrastructure that was created in these countries, that they received modernization because you had technically advanced nations coming there and sharing the knowledge and implementing new construction and new railways and all of those types of things. But I think that's part of what's behind it, is that it is a historic resentment that has arisen from what has occurred previously by way of those countries being subsumed within an empire, so that now it's part of that complaint of you're racist, your monarchy's racist, and you ought to pay us some form of restitution. And of course, I've already instructed my lawyers to ask the governments of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway to offer me restitution, because I'm pretty sure some Vikings came over and ravaged and pillaged my forebears. And I'm also thinking that I might bring a claim against the Romans because they came across here and they caused some mischief. So, where does it end? And I think that's where it stems from, that there is this victim mentality that has led into them, and it's just a cheap shot, just to say just to bleat you're racist, just to throw that around without any actual comprehension of what you're truly saying. That's not to say that it doesn't exist. Of course it does. Of course racism exists, and nobody's going to deny that. But unfortunately, these individuals that are utilizing it in relation to the royals are doing so in a way which then just causes more people to roll their eyes and become fed up of hearing it. So
I hear what you're saying. That's a good point. But I always found that fascinating. That aspect of that.
Yeah. Now, what is it about this one's wife that annoys you the most? If you were to pick something about her a particular character trait or behavior? What is it most about her that really gets
Well,
under
the
your
fact,
skin?
one of the facts is because maybe with my hair is she's American, so people immediately think that all Americans are like that. She made us look bad, right? I mean,
Okay.
let's be honest. We've had two Americans marry into the British aristocracy, Wallace Simpson and Meghan Markle, so we don't have the best track record. The other thing I don't like is she's pretentious and she's
Hmm.
fake. She's
Okay.
totally fake. And I cannot stand hypocrisy and fakeness. I'm a very real person. I'm from Texas. We're straight shooters. I can't stand, she pretends to be Snow White and she's Cruella de Vil. It's like,
Yeah.
just own it. Be who you are. I would have more respect for you if you just told the world who you were and own it.
You do understand that she can't do that though because of her narcissism.
Right.
So
She
when you
thinks that
say
we're bullying
so when
people,
you
but
say that she ought to when you say that she ought to own it, whilst I understand your sentiment, she is
right.
pathologically incapable of doing that. So
Can I ask you a question about a
yeah,
narcissist? Because I was thinking about this today before I was getting ready. I'm like, I have to ask you.
certainly
Are narcissists born or are they made?
they're created. So imagine it's like baking a cake. So you have the ingredients, which is the genetic predisposition to becoming a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have an oven, which is set at the right temperature, and you put your ingredients in there for a duration of time. That's the lack of control environment. So to create a narcissist, you need a genetic predisposition. So you will, in effect, have that genetic predisposition passed down from your mother or your father, maybe both, or possibly further back in your lineage. So that sits there. Now, if that's all there is, you won't be a narcissist. You also need the other thing, which is this lack of control environment. So that might be being physically abused, sexually abused, neglected, being told that you are wonderful and amazing at everything you do, when in actual fact you're not. And those are, excuse me, different lack of control environments. So you need those two things. So with this one's wife, she has got the genetic predisposition from one or both of her parents, and she had a lack of control environment when she was a young girl, which probably was related to the absence of her mother and the fact that her parents, of course, there won't have been the happiest of environments because it led to divorce between the two of them. And the fact that her father treated her like a princess, that he effectively overcompensated and gave her everything that she required. So she got that genetic predisposition, and then she also got the lack of control environment. Put those two things together and you get a narcissist.
Okay, because I was thinking about that because I remember, if you remember her, one of her claim to fame was that dish soap commercial.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the stills of the commercial, she had this little stank face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she had this little, you should be so happy to be interviewing my 10-year-old self. And I was like, wow, for a little girl with a camera crew, she wasn't like nervous or happy. She kind of had a little bit of an arrogant face in a couple of those screenshots. And she uses the exact same expression today.
That's
and
right.
I just found that hilarious. I'm like, wow, she was like that at 10 years old. You know, so was she born with that?
Already her narcissism will have formed at that age. So what you were witnessing when she was making that face was the reaction of her narcissism. Her narcissism is a self-defense mechanism that has been created to deal with threats to control, to cause her to gain fuel from people. That's the emotional response to what she does. So for instance, she calls Harry a bad name and he gets upset. That fuels her. If she tells him he's a wonderful husband and he thanks her, that fuels her. If Harry comes in with a bunch of flowers for her, that fuels her. If he wants to have some sexy time with her, that fuels her. So her narcissism is designed to pursue what are known as the prime aims: control, fuel, character traits, and residual benefits, which I repeat regularly in my videos to drive home that message to people. That's what governs her when it's her interactions. Now,
so
we just mentioned
attitude is good. Yeah.
Yeah. So just mention Harry. Do you find him annoying?
Okay. Yeah, I'm very disappointed. You know, because again, we have a certain narrative and an ideal and illusion of people, you know, famous people. And then we start to hear them talk and we're like, ooh, stop talking. You know, how actors get involved in politics and then you immediately don't like them anymore because you're like, quit talking. With
Yes.
Harry, I'm very disappointed. I believe that he has Arrested Development, you know, the 12-year-old boy. That will always break my heart. You know, the story and the image of him walking behind his mother's casket, and William, that will always break my heart. But I'm very disappointed in how he's turned out. And I believe he's so self-absorbed. He doesn't understand the privilege he was born into. And he has now, he kind of inherited Meghan's victim mentality. Poor us. And it's like, y'all are so privileged. You have no idea what you have. You know, you're the 1%. And so now everything he does is so self-serving, and he's so bitter and jealous of William. I mean, the book Spare was embarrassing. I'm like, I cannot believe you talked about your Todger. My God, like, did you think people were going to feel sorry for you? Why would you put that in your book? That is so embarrassing. I can never look at Elizabeth Arden again, right? The whole mummy complex with his wife telling people that she channels his dead mom. I'm like, that is like, I would have run for the hills if I was dating a guy and he told me I reminded him of his mother, right? That's weird. There's 3 of them in that marriage, Diana, Meghan, and Harry. So he's just kind of gone extremely weird and sad. And I don't know if it's her or him or both. I don't know. I don't like him anymore. I just do not like him.
You mentioned there that Spare was embarrassing. What would you say is the most embarrassing thing that she's done? There's plenty to choose from, but if you had to pick something, what would you say it was?
I think when she was in Africa and she just had visited those women who had the world, you know, major atrocities. And she sat there and said, well, no one asked how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, did you just see those people? How, you know, normal people, you know, we complain about stuff. That's just life. We live in the first world country. You know, we complain that our Starbucks wasn't right. But then if you ever meet someone who has like nothing, like a homeless person, then you kind of feel bad. You check yourself, like, get it together. You're complaining about your Starbucks and this person over here is homeless, or this person's dying of cancer, right? Or they can't pay their electric bill for their children. You feel a little guilty for feeling bad for yourself. This was a royal duchess. She had no shame. Did not feel bad at all. Like, you're finally asking about me. I'm like, wow. You would never see Princess Diana, Sophie, the Queen, Prince William, King Charles ever say on a camera, we didn't ask you how I'm doing. Like,
and again,
what?
That's victim mentality driven by her narcissism, because in that moment she needed to control the interviewer and she needed to control the people watching. So her form of narcissism chose a pity play, which was nobody asked about me if I was okay. And the narcissism isn't thinking about how does that look. All it's thinking is play the victim, make people feel sorry for you, and that'll give you control and fuel. And of course, some people may have felt sorry for her, but many people thought, you self-absorbed, self-centered individual, which shows how her narcissism repeatedly backfires as a consequence of its inability to read the room, because she, 1, has no emotional empathy, and 2, she lacks fully functioning cognitive empathy that would be able to pick up on that. So a more evolved narcissist, although they wouldn't feel it, they wouldn't say something like that, because their narcissism would recognize that would not come across particularly well. Yeah.
Right. And go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to say during the Oprah interview, really quickly, if you watch the docuseries, you know, she really was trying to become Princess Diana, and she had the whole narrative when she said she wanted to hurt herself when she was pregnant, but she did it for Harry. That was weird. And then the funny thing was they were shocked that people were more concerned about the racism than about her unaliving herself. She was actually appalled. I don't know if you ever saw that clip, but I thought that was interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Now, this one's wife, as you know, that's what I call her. I don't use her real name, because the only reason we know about her is because she's Harry's wife, as I used to call her. Now she's this one's wife. What's your favorite nickname for her?
I just call her Megsy, Duchess of Delusion. I just really and Megsy. I do a little Harry impersonation. I should have brought them. I was going to bring my little Barbies for you, do a little show and tell. But I call him Harold and Maude. I don't do any curse words toward them. I know a lot of people call them derogatory names, but I just call her Megsy or the Duchess of Delusion or Carilla DeVille. But that's really it.
Yeah, and what about Harry? You have a nickname? What's your favorite nickname for him?
Yeah, just Harry has balls. Some people call him Harry has no balls. Yeah, just Harold. Yeah,
okay.
Nothing real creative. No.
All right, now I want you to fire up your imagination now, Michelle.
Okay.
And the sun has gone down, the heat of the day is dissipating in California. The crickets are starting to make their noise in the garden. And as dusk has come about, this one's wife and Harry are settling down for bed. What do you think their bedtime routine is?
He goes to his room and she goes to hers.
So you don't think they sleep together?
I don't.
And what do you think Harry does in that spare room?
He plays Underoos.
He plays what? I beg your pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just got a message. I was about to end. He plays Xbox in his Underoos and smokes wacky tobacco.
Oh, in his Underoos. I see. Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't fully familiar with the vernacular there. I understand. Yeah. And what? Right. And so he's there in his Underoos playing Call of Duty. And what's this one's wife doing when she's in that other bedroom? Probably the master bedroom. She's kicked him out.
She's got like a whole bunch of monitors, and she's on her fake social accounts telling people how great.
So that's when she's weaving her wicked web across the internet, is it? Very good. Okay. Yeah. Imagine, if you will, that this one's wife is on her way out, and she's about to expire. What do you think her final words will be?
I was great.
Fair enough. That sums it up quite neatly. Do you think that Harry has a guilty pleasure that this one's wife doesn't know about? And if he does, what do you think it is?
Late night phone calls with Nacho in one of his 16 bathrooms.
Oh, I see. A little bit of man love going on, huh? Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got this picture of Harry in his Underoos, either playing Call of Duty and skulking around, ringing up Nacho. And before she gets on, she's done a hard shift rather at social media. She's been guest speaker on page 6's below the line comment, etc. But now now this one's wife she's popped in the shower. What do you think the first thing that is that she washes?
Oh wow. I don't know. Maybe her face. She's got she's got to wash off the self tanner. So I think she's going to reach for the loofah.
Okay.
She's going to have to start with, because she's got to apply some more self tanner.
Makes sense. And when Harry sat on the throne, although he'd like to be sat on an actual one, but we're talking talking about the toilet. Okay. What do you think's going through his mind when he has that moment of solitude?
I think he starts hearing the voices and starts having the conversations. If you remember, he went to Courtney Cox's house, and the toilet talked to him. So I think after he smokes a couple wacky tobacco, he goes in there and talks to his mom. Has some conversations with the toilet, right? Get some advice how to deal with Megan.
Fair enough. Do you think the two of them have an overarching agenda? And if they do, what do you think it is? An
overarching agenda?
Yeah. Do you think they've got one?
I do. I think they're definitely trying for free speech. They're obsessed with controlling the narrative. I think Megan is a narcissist, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. She wants to control that narrative. And how are they going to do that? They're going to do that by getting in bed with the big wigs over there on YouTube, on Google. They're a part of those charities where they want to shut free speech down. They want to throttle people like me and you. They don't want us to be out there. So I think they're very, I can't even think of the word fascist. Is that the right word? But I think they're very much getting into politics. And the thing that really scares me is, their little buddy, Gavin Newsom, who literally went out and talked about, poor little Harry and Megsy. They're not delinquent. He could be in the running for president. There's rumors they might replace Biden. And I'm like, oh my God, could you just imagine if Gavin Newsom got in the White House? Meghan and Harry would be at every White House dinner. Just the magnitude that they would be next to that kind of power, scary for free speech.
Whilst I could appreciate they would, let us assume that Newsom somehow
Yeah.
did
It's a small, yeah.
did become the presidential candidate, although I don't think he would defeat Trump. But leaving that to one side, let's assume in this alternative universe he does get into the White House. Naturally, this one's wife will be absolutely beating a path to the door to try and be involved. But do you think that Newsom, although he spoke out in their defense just recently, it was the case prior to that, wasn't it, that he talked about blocking her calls because she was pestering him so much?
Right.
And he's just become president of the United States. Do you really think that he would entertain the two of them, or do you think I've got more important things to deal with?
Well, look at Trump entertained Kim Kardashian, right? He entertained her for a certain prison reform. So, of course, Meghan and Harry would come in with the free speech or anti-bullying on social media. It would be something to do with the press and the narrative. It would be a specific reason why they were there. You know what I mean? It wouldn't just be a free for all. But again, he, I believe they're trying to get with Archwell Foundation for one of his homelessness projects in California. So I think that's why he's kind of being nice to them, because I think they're throwing money at him and he needs a lot of money. So I think that's why he was coming to their defense. So if they did get with Gavin, if he got in the White House, it would be for an initiative, but it definitely would be attacking free speech. They would be doing something with the Aspen Institute, all those things. They're definitely heavily relying on that. That's just my opinion.
Why do you think, I know you mentioned about controlling the narrative, but if we be a bit more specific, what do you think it is that the two of them, what is the driver behind wanting to curtail freedom of speech?
Well, because, you know, Meghan, in my opinion, left the royal family because they wouldn't stop the press from talking negatively about her. She thought the king was going to snap his fingers and everyone was just going to love Meghan and she was going to be Snow White, Ariel, and they weren't going to say anything bad about her. But that wasn't the case. And I think that she felt unprotected. So maybe being a narcissist, she has this control of wanting people to love her and to think that she's amazing and sweet, even though she's not. And I think the fact that her past is coming back, all her skeletons are coming up, she wants to bury them. She doesn't like it. It's not good for her brand. And Harry, you know, he's always trying to be the dragon slayer, trying to protect Meghan because he couldn't protect his mom. And he literally thinks that she's his mother, right? I don't know. So I think he just kind of follows along, and he has this you know, his big enemy is the British media. As I say, the British media, right? He hates the British media. And so he has a bone to pick with tabloids. And so the two of them together, they want to eradicate tabloids. Only people can say good things, only say good things. And if you're not going to play ball, then he wants to remove you because they're narcissists, right? Is that what they want to do? I don't know.
Well, she, as a narcissist, as you know, needs control. And any criticism of her is a threat to her need for control. So people articulating those criticisms in the press, in broadcast news, so the likes of Piers Morgan, Megyn Kelly, Sky News in Australia, who regularly laugh at the pair of them.
I love them.
And then across social media, YouTubers, blog writers, people that post stuff on X and on Facebook, etc. All of that threatens her need for control. So it's entirely understandable that she would want to shut those people up so that she wouldn't have to do that. What's interesting, you see, is that a more evolved narcissist would be able to go about it in two ways. The first is that a more evolved narcissist would actually potentially have the power by influencing the media through wealth and possibly political or military power. Or a more evolved narcissist would simply just laugh about these criticisms and think, you know, I am a billionaire, I go around the world, I do all of these different things. These people are just little beetles running around at the base of the edifice that is me. And so most evolved narcissists, what I call greaters, the ones who are in particular positions of power and influence and know what they are, they aren't bothered by these criticisms on social media. It's beneath them. But for her, because she's a mid-range narcissist, it really gets to her, because her shtick, if you will, is to tell the world, I'm lovely. I'm a really nice person. I'm a wonderful mother. I'm a fantastic wife. I care. I really do care And so when people say you're actually a horrible grifter who's self-centered, that offends
Right.
the image that she has of herself, and it really gets to her. And so
Right.
she is unable to rise above the criticisms. They actually do get to her, and that's why she spends the time that she does scouring social media. And we know that she looks,
Yeah.
because you see the way that, for instance, she tries to respond. So when the criticisms came about what was said by the First Lady of Nigeria, we saw the way that she organized for them to round on the Sidley twins. And we've seen other YouTubers being gone after through the blunt weapon that is Christopher Boozy. So we know that she sees this, and we know that she can't stand to have that criticism, because her brand of narcissism is such that she believes herself to be a wonderful person. And if you say anything to the contrary, that goes against, and in the circumstances, she can't cope with that. So that's why she would want to silence people, because it would nullify the threats to control. So there may well be force in what they're trying to achieve. Absolutely the case.
True. That's a good point. Yeah.
As we reach the end of time on this particular conversation, Michelle, there's only one thing that's left to do, and that's a game of this or that. Awesome. Now I'm going to present you with two choices and options, and you have to pick one. You can't say neither. So imagine there is a loaded gun pointing at you that's forcing you to give me an answer. So, fruit or veg?
Fruit.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Text or call?
What?
Text or telephone call?
Oh, text.
Laptop or tablet?
Laptop.
Driver or passenger?
Passenger.
Sapphire or ruby?
Sapphire.
Soft or hard?
Soft.
Dusk or dawn?
Dawn.
Unicorn or dragon?
Unicorn.
Hamburgers or hot dogs?
Hamburger.
Fresh linen or fresh coffee?
Ooh, fresh coffee.
James Bond or Jason Bourne?
James Bond.
Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Harry Potter.
Jam or marmalade?
Jam.
Elf or dwarf?
Elf.
Roses or lilies?
Roses.
Christian Bale or Hugh Jackman?
Christian Bale.
Titanic or Ghost?
Titanic.
Top Gun or Fast and Furious?
Top Gun.
Green or blue?
Blue.
Spring or fall?
Fall.
Wizard or warrior?
Warrior.
Mountain or beach?
Beach.
Wasps or bees?
Bees.
Sparkling or still?
Sparkling.
Frasier or Seinfeld?
Frasier.
Homer or Bart?
Homer.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Spending the afternoon with Oprah or spending the evening with Ellen DeGeneres?
Ugh. Oprah.
Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
The book or the film adaptation?
The book.
Prince William or Loose Cannon Louis?
Prince William.
Sophie or Princess Anne?
Princess Anne.
Harry or this one's wife?
Harry.
This one's wife or Prince Andrew?
Oh. This one's wife.
Okay. And finally, spending a day with this one's wife doing whatever she wants, or if you want to avoid that, you never make a video about her again.
I'll spend the afternoon because then I can make a video on it.
Good answer. Well, Michelle, pleasure to have spoken to you. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts about this one's wife and all things associated with her. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to the next occasion that we speak.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome.
Bye.